We're going to talk about some painting stuff today. On my show, I always want to make sure now to step on this side of the show because I don't like covering up the T because then it's like pain. And you know, pain is part of painting, but I don't want you to immediately associate that. See, if I block the P, then it's ain't with Alex, which is better than pain. Today, you know, if you've been following along, you have a few paintings that you've been working on or watched me do in the 5 other shows that we've done so far. And what we talked about last week, we will definitely revisit on a future show. We're just going to let those 2 episodes kind of ruminate in your mind, and we're going to move into a good way to get into some color today on one of your paintings. We'll just leave it on this slide for a minute. What I'm going to talk about is glazing. Glazing. You really got to learn to get yourself into the mindset of the old masters, because we live in an age that is awash with images, man. I mean, they are so completely disposable to our lives. And yet, when we were, you know, in the 1400s, 1300s, like, you know, if you didn't have a lot of money, you didn't even have a mirror, you know. Chances are you only saw a blurry reflection of yourself your entire life, you know. There were no selfies. The thought of any kind of mechanical means of capturing the world before us was like, it was not in their mindset at all. All that they knew was the way that they created images and human beings hand-making pictures. That's all there was, you know. I mean, I'm sure every little tiny town had a painter that, you know, did portraits and whatnot, but chances are most of those didn't survive the test of time. Nobody cared who these people were that were being painted. The only reason that we would be interested in them, or they might be in some, you know, second B-level art museum somewhere, like from the studio of so-and-so the elder in who knows where, Germany, is because they're just old. You know, we look at old films. You ever go to Google and you find these videos that Hollywood shot? They were film originally, but they shot them in like the 40s. And they would just put a camera on the back of a truck and they would drive around LA filming out the back for hours, you know. And it was simply meant to be green screened onto, you know, a TV show or whatever. But it's like fascinating because it's old. And that's one thing about old paintings, especially. If they survive the test of time, chances are we're interested in looking at them just because it was a human handmade object, like a, you know, like a arrowhead or whatever. So the handmade image was all that there was, and you know, the means and the ways that they learned about how to execute these images, it became very, in certain studios, it became very didactic or very formalized more and more through the years. But taking apart the color from, and separating the color from the black and white was something that I think was part of the evolution of people crafting I guess more and more complex images throughout the years. So it's when I teach painting, it's something that I definitely like to do. I've said it before, whenever you look at an artist who is trailblazing from Picasso to Rembrandt or whoever, they always limit their color when they're trying to figure something out pictorially, because just dealing with black and white is a lot easier. So today we're going to talk about a really easy way to get color into your black and white pieces, because You know, we had that little kitty cat painting, and I did that monochrome copy of the that we saw at the beginning of the show. I did this monochrome copy of the Washington Cross to Delaware. We're going to colorize this with glazes. Somehow the word glazing, it's like it's a magic word, and people saying it says paint, not paint. Artists get really caught up in glazing, man. And, you know, if you read about, let's say, Giorgio Vasari describing Titian making a painting, and in fact, what's behind me right now, that is a monochrome copy that I did of a Titian painting, a Bacchanal. And you can see there's, you know, people drinking and a lot of nudity and kids and whatever. It was, you know, ancient Greece. It was the Arcadian paradise or what have you. But that's a monochrome of a Titian. And Titian was described by Vasari in his book, Lives of the Artist, as painting 40 or 50 glazes on one painting. Oh my gosh, 40 or 50 glazes. Now, first of all, what is a glaze? A glaze comes from the word, like, you know, when they say glazing, like with construction, it means you're putting windows. You know, glazing is windows. A glazier is someone who puts windows up. A glaze, when it comes to painting, is more like pastry. It's a transparent film, always of color. I mean, you wouldn't glaze something with no color, or that would, I guess, be sort of like a varnish layer or something, just a transparent coating. But the glazing, when it comes to oil paint, is applying a transparent wash of color onto the surface, okay? And so if I go to the next slide here, this is my monochrome that I did for another class. And so then you can see, if we go to the next slide, this is the monochrome with glazes, okay? Look at that magic shift right there. So all the colors of the black and white, which holds its own structure of the composition, and always should, they stay exactly where they are, but you're tinting the monochrome to introduce color to the picture. I mean, this is exactly how the old guys thought about picture making, you know. Now, there's a third stage here where I repainted the painting opaquely, but matching with opaque paint the effect of the transparent color over the monochrome underpainting. You understand? These, you might not be able to tell the difference between this right here and this from a distance. They appear very similar, but the first one is a wash of color, and then the second one is, now here's where we're more familiar with colorizing a monochrome underpainting, okay? Everyone's getting really into, now this used to happen back in the day, but with digital it's even better because you can colorize the monochrome without affecting the lightness or the darkness of the surface at all, which is not possible with paint. I'll explain to you real quickly. But this is the colorized image of Abe Lincoln here from the original black and white right here. And then here is color added to it. And that's, once photography came out, probably the very next thing that they started to do with these black and white or sepia tone photographs was to apply these watercolor washes onto them to colorize them. And most of those original old colorized photos, the colors have all faded. Here's another one that's like very subtly done, but on one side it's black and white, and on the other side it's color. And, you know, it's not a lot of color in the world sometimes. You know, there's a little orange on their faces and maybe some gray in the suits and various shades of brown and stuff. But think of colorizing a photograph. That was one of the only ways the old masters would think about, well, I'm going to make a picture. What do I do? Well, I've done this, and now I'm going to colorize it. Well, what is the next slide here? Okay, so like another example, going through a monochrome to a colorized, to a tinted with glazes underpainting, and then to opaque on top. Here is a portrait that I did of a fellow, and I showed this last week. Now this underpainting was painted in monochrome, but I forced the key, meaning the darkest dark in the picture is, for example, his tie or his black jacket here. But in the painting, that's middle gray. See, I didn't allow myself to actually go to black. So now the whole picture is keyed up as if you increase the lightness in Photoshop or something. And the benefit of that, like I was saying with the monochrome or with the tinted photograph of Abe Lincoln, with paint, when you colorize the picture, it always darkens it, even if just a teeny bit, because whatever color, I mean, if it's whatever it was, you apply a wash of any color whatsoever, from yellow to blue or something. If it's yellow, maybe it only changes it a teeny bit, or if it's a very pale green, maybe you barely notice. But when you're doing something darker, it darkens it. So by doing the underpainting in a lighter key, by not allowing myself any values under middle gray and only working with half, when I moved into glazing, that's when I really got to reach into my darks and to expand the range of values. And a glaze depends on lightness underneath it to show through, to see the glaze. I mean, think about it. If I put a wash of color on a black surface, I won't see it, you know. And pretty much all printed photographs that we see in our lives today are watercolor, as I've said before. They are a spray of inks, transparent inks, over a white piece of paper. And so like a watercolor or like a glazed, like a painting that's executed entirely in transparent paint, whatever. It's got a lot of brightness. But see, now from this stage, this is where the old guys would just think, well, this is a stage to colorize it. Now I'm going to paint again. And they would move into opaque paint. So here I was able, by moving from the glazed, colorized underpainting, I'm able to then let that determine the colors that I'm going to move into when I go into opaque paint. But with opaque paint, I have more control over the drawing. I have more control over certain subtleties and nuances and things like that. Here's a monochrome. I think this is a different one than I did here. No. Well, this is what we're going to work on today. We're going to colorize this image, and I brought it in. But at this point, I am going to just introduce a little bit about the colors and how you're thinking as far as glazing versus, you know, again, this is a way to sneak into color, because all we've really talked about on this show is working in monochrome. This is the first time we're really going to get bright, but it's the easiest way to get bright. And of course it's the way that we evolved to make pictures, because it really kind of makes sense. Let's see here. We got a bunch of pigments right here. And so now I'm on that shot. And then also like top down. Right here, this is I brought the painting in. This is the piece that is the Titian copy that I've done that started off monochrome, and then it was glazed with transparent color, and then I let that dry. And then I came right back and maybe adjusted the drawing a little bit, and then repainted with opaque paint the colors that I created with the washes. And remember, you can mix any dang color you want. I already showed you that. I can mix skin tone right on my skin. I can mix pants color. I can mix blah, blah, blah. So if you can mix any dang color in the world, you can also mix all the colors that you've created on this crazy canvas surface, okay? Now, here's one of the paintings I brought in to colorize, and this is the one that we worked on a couple of weeks ago. It's the Washington Cross in the Delaware. It's totally dry now, okay? And this was done in, I guess, a warmish brown. You know, thinking in terms of doing underpainting with the intention of colorizing it like we're doing in this, you can experiment with the color that you do the monochrome underpainting with. Here I'm going with a very neutral color, but I could have painted this with more of a brown or an ochre. And that brown or warmer or even cooler, maybe I do it with Payne's gray, and that cooler underpainting would then inform all the washes of color that we're going to be putting on top of it. That maybe subtle warm brown or subtle cool gray is what's going to maybe pull all the colors together in an interesting way. I mean, this image never existed, okay? Once again, you know, like this is pre-photographic pretty much. So, I mean, a bunch of models got together at different points and got into these poses. But who's to say they were ever in this boat, ever, anywhere near each other? You know, it's a creation. You know? So as such, the artist is going to, you know, listen to history and try to be historic about, you know, real practical about that we're being, whatever. But at the same time, it's total invention. So, I mean, I could paint him with a pink jacket, or yellow everywhere, or whatever. Oh, we're definitely losing some light a little bit. What's going on? Hey, so, but before that, let's talk a little bit about the colors that you use for glazing. Now, the colors that you use are transparent colors, and the pigments that you buy in the tubes, they're either opaque or they're transparent, okay? So let's go quickly to the slide camera one more time. I'm going to show one quick slide that will, let's see, there it is. Okay, that is the symbol that you kind of want to look for on the tube, okay? The tube will either say that the paint is opaque or semi-transparent or transparent, or it'll have a symbol. And that symbol will either be a solid circle or square, either black and white, for opaque, and then a half of a circle or a square, black and white, for semi-transparent, and then just like a circle as a line or a square line square, meaning transparent. So, for example, I'm going to go up to this wide shot camera, and you can see right here on the tube. Maybe it doesn't show up, but right there, it says opaque, and it's got a black square that's solid, okay? That makes sense, because this is cadmium red light. This is a color you would not glaze with, because it's opaque. What else would you not glaze with? All the cadmium colors, they're opaque. White, it doesn't make sense. Think of glazing with oil paint, think of it like watercolor, I guess. I mean, sometimes with watercolor, yeah, you use a little bit of China white at the very end, but most of the time you're wanting to do it with the transparent the whole way through. So what colors are transparent? Well, like I said, you can look at the tube and they'll tell you. You can look online. But of the colors that I use a lot, like the earth tones, most of the earth tones are transparent. Like raw sienna, transparent. Burnt sienna, transparent. Raw umber, burnt umber, both transparent. Gosh, there's so many different browns and shades of brown. Like here is permanent matter brown. That's a weird one. Here's one. This one's called Courbet green. And, you know, it's another weird earth tone. Here's kind of a strange, obscure one. Rose madder. Rose madder. Strange. Indian yellow. What? This is super yellow. Let's see. Here's what else? Burnt sienna. There's that one. That's a great transparent color. They're endless. There's endless weird earth tones that you can come across, like Italian Pompeii red. What is that? Dirt from Pompeii? Or how about still de grain. I don't even know what still de grain is, but it looks a lot like raw sienna. You know, most of the time, these really obscure colors, you can just mix it with another color, frankly. But if you are in the mood to satisfy your Jones for weird colors to play around with, when you get into the transparent colors, man, it's endless. So you might just find the magic color that you just wash over your painting, and that and once you do that, the painting just comes to life. But those colors are really expensive, though, and they're hard to come by. And in fact, they don't exist. So yeah, there is no magic color. What else? A lot of blues are transparent. Ultramarine blue, as we buy it today, is a fantastic transparent color. I cannot give enough praise to ultramarine blue. Now here, a phthalo, all the phthalo colors, every single one of them, phthalo green, yellow shade, phthalo green, blue shade, phthalo blue, green shade, phthalo blue, green shade, phthalo red, violet, all of them. Every single phthalo color, if it says phthalo, it's transparent. All right? Most of the colors nowadays are transparent. They call them organic pigments. But I think they're quite inorganic, frankly. But they all come from petroleum distillates of some sort. What else is another? A lot of greens are transparent. Like I said, all the phthalo greens. Viridian, the old school, the classic, that's transparent. Here's Terra Verte. That's one of my dirt rainbow colors, Terra Verte. And Terra Verte, which means green earth, is transparent. It's another transparent green. Sap green, right here, sap green. Hooker's green, Jenkins green. All those greens, I could get, again, here's the Courbet green. That's another weird one. Transparent. A lot of the reds are transparent. Oh my gosh. We could go on and on with the reds, starting with alizarin crimson, which is a beautiful, cool red. But the anthraquinone red, naphthol red, permanent rose, which is my personal favorite, rose madder deep. This sounds so important. Rose madder genuine, like all those. Ruby violet, all of them transparent. And again, they either say it on the tube or they have one of those three symbols that I showed you. And you know who's the worst at labeling the opacity or transparency of their colors? Winsor Newton. I don't know why they are so lame about putting any information, but they're just whatever. You got to kind of look it up on their website. But paint's only one of two things. I mean, it's either transparent or opaque or some variation in between the two, but that's it. That's all that it can exist in. Let's see, what else? Yellows. There's a few yellows. The yellow that I use when I'm painting, most of the time I'm using opaque yellows. But Indian yellow is a very popular, transparent yellow, very intense. And man, when I was a student and I was for some reason I was in love with the brown sauce, as they call it, the brown sauce of the old masters, which frankly is a misinterpretation. But I would finish a painting and then I would just paint Indian yellow all over it. Like I couldn't get that old faded yellow Rembrandtiness. I couldn't get enough of that. And but now I try to avoid it. Now, there's a misinterpretation, and there's so much wonderful misinterpretation that's happened throughout art history. And one of them is that, is Vasari describing how Titian would paint 40 or 50 glazes on one of his paintings. And you start to think, oh my gosh, like 40 or 50 all on top of each other. It must just be like a puddle of colors, all this transparent and whatever. And then you start to look into some of the names of the transparent colors, and they're like lake. They call them lakes. And you're like, ooh, 40 or 50, and then you want to just put all these glazes on your picture. But remember, these guys just thought of the glaze as a step in the way towards bringing an image to fruition from their mind, because that's all where it came from. And so if you're looking at a painting that Titian did, let's go back to the slides, and let me roll back a couple of slides here to, nope, almost there. Okay, so if we're looking at this slide right here, okay, and we have male figures, and someone's wearing pink, and someone's got blue on, and there's green and brown and blue sky and red and all these different colors. Just to colorize this underpainting right here from where I just showed you monochrome to now color, that's what? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. That's like 20 glazes at least, just right there. So it's not like these guys put 50 glazes of transparent color all on top of one another. It was more like, well, there's a tree in this painting, so I'm going to put some green and brown on it. And there's blue sky, so I'm going to put that blue. And there's a river, and I'm going to put Prussian blue on that. And she's wearing orange, and he's got pink, and they've got blue on, and this and that, and colors and drapery. And suddenly, 25 glazes later, you're at the, you've made your monochrome look like it's a tinted photograph, and then you can move into opaque paint and start to at least have a feeling for where you're going to go with the color. It's an interesting place to follow color, because you're not trying to invent it out of your head. You're using the process to create the color that then you paint. You're painting the colors that you make. It's again, it's a stranger, or it's an older mindset towards how we create an image. But if I went down to if we went to the top-down camera, and I just put this one just back on top here to look at, okay? This painting right now is executed with this palette of colors, okay? This is the Dirt Rainbow palette of colors. It's 7 colors total. They're all earth tones. This painting was created with 6 earth tones plus white, or 7 earth tones plus white. Okay, so in terms of the old masters, what's the lost secret of the old masters? Well, the number one lost secret of the old masters is they made do with very little. Okay, so by just taking 6 shades of dirt and making a party scene of the gods, that was like, a big deal. Now, this painting, you got this blue drapery here, you got some pink here, you got some red and some blue and orange. Now, the old masters like Titian or whatever, the guy who did this painting, on this underpainting, maybe they would do one more glaze. Maybe they would glaze ultramarine blue on her drape. And then they would glaze one glaze of alizarin crimson on that guy. It may be a little bit of a burnt sienna over there. And just a little bit of color like a raw sienna on this guy possibly. Who knows? But at the very end, they would put on 4 or 5 more glazes on the areas that they really wanted to punch that color. Like the Madonna is bright red, bright blue, pure white, and then all those colors surround Jesus. So they want the brightest. A little fly landed on the painting there. So maybe after we do a little bit of glazing on our painting of George Washington crossing the Delaware here, if we've got some clean spots, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll just put a little bit of ultramarine blue and some pink on there and take this to that one last level of saturation that the old masters could get to, which was a glaze, because glazes are super intense, you know. I can already tell that leaning over and painting with this tie on is not gonna hack it. So I'm definitely gonna take off the tie right now, and we'll just throw that over there. We got the casual look on right now. So looking at this piece right now, and I got just a whole mess of colors, transparent colors that I can work with. First of all, let me put my gloves on, and while I'm doing that, I'll just keep up a banter of conversation, or I'll look back at the wide shot wistfully. Hey guys, putting on those gloves for safety. Safety and something about me I'm just not into the feeling of the paint. Just soaking in, not comfortable with that sensation. So now one thing you'll notice is that I have a palette here that is clean. When you're glazing, boy, glazing is all about pure color, you know. And so the palette that I do my painting and mucking around with does not cut it for glazing. You definitely want a clean palette. And so this is one that I normally use for acrylic, and there's no murky mess, there's nothing on there. It's a nice, fresh, clean sheet of paper. And then right in here, inside my container there, this is my brush cleaner and my brush cleaner fluid. That's clean. I cleaned it today, and I put fresh, clean brush cleaner in there. I got some of my medium here. This helps the paint dry fast, and you have to add a decent quantity of that to the glaze as you're going. So let's pick some colors. I love ultramarine blue. I can never get enough burnt umber. La Terra Verte, let's do it. I think that there's maybe some, I don't know what still de grain is. And then we'll maybe get some burnt sienna. And then let's get like a red, maybe 2 reds. And then let's get the rest of these out of here for now. I'm just going to put these on the ground, get my workspace cleared out here. And then this color, this is opaque, forget it. No, we're not dealing with opaque today. Transparent. Shoo. Now, frankly, I don't remember exactly what all these colors are of the painting, but I think we'll just wing it. You know, it's going to be okay. It's going to work out all right. So now with a glaze, you're thinning the paint as a long way. You're really thinning the paint and painting it like a wash. And when you do that, that's the only time that you can think that if you just thin the color with the spirit, which is what you clean your brush with, and doesn't have any drying agent to it, if you just thin it with that to the point of it being a wash, you might overextend the amount of oil paint that's ground with it in the tube and not get a good layer, not have enough medium in it, or as they call it, binder, to dry, okay? So however much you thin it with the spirit, you got to add a little bit of medium to it just to make sure that there's enough of the stuff to dry in it. So let's start off with maybe some ultramarine blue. A little bit ultramarine blue, teeny bit. Now this is another advantage to working with glazes, is a little bit goes a long way. And so when, you know, all you got is a teeny dollop of ultramarine blue, because that's all you can afford back 400 years ago, you really wanted that, you wanted to get the most out of that ultramarine blue, you know. So here's my medium, And I'm going to pour some of this medium into this cup here. All right. A good quantity of it. And I'm going to dip a clean brush into this medium, and I'm going to mix a little bit so that I start to get a puddle of ultramarine blue that's just thinned with the medium, okay? And I'm going to take a nice, decent-sized brush, which I'm going to dip in a little bit of oil paint, and then in my cleaner, and then let's get a little bit of color in the sky here. And big brush. Don't worry about if you paint too far, or if see, we're just going to get that sky a little bit cooler. A little bit cooler in some spots, and but don't worry about, oh, I gotta not paint through the American flag there, because this underpainting is dry, guys, and you can come in with a clean paper towel or a rag, and you can wipe out places where you don't want that. Maybe I want these clouds here to be a little bit lighter, okay, and I don't want the blue, let's say, crossing over at that one point there. And also, man, like watercolor, you'll notice that the tiniest wash, man, of watercolor, that's the thing about watercolor, it's so easy to get so dark, so quick. And we learn with watercolor, wow, man, there's so many light values that our eye can see that, you know, starting off light and you know, recognizing that you can wipe away, that a little bit of color in there goes a long way. You know, now maybe I want to at the bottom. See, now I'm going to kind of be inventing this now. Now with glazing too, brush fussiness is kind of like, whoa, super important. So I'm going to get a little bit of this burnt sienna here. And the brush fussiness makes a big difference because, much like watercolor, you can very quickly get dirty, you know. So now we got some brown, kind of a warm brown, and then maybe in between that, I'm going to just mix a little bit of permanent rose. And I'm going to take that same brush that had the brown with it, but I'm going to mix a little bit of this permanent rose down here. So we got about maybe 3 different other places. Now maybe at the bottom here, again, I'm sort of inventing the color, but maybe at the bottom of the sky, maybe it's kind of brown. It's like scarier, you know. And then there's like, so maybe it's kind of red over there, you know. So certainly this is a time when you can really experiment with the color and be broad and bold with it. You don't have to stay in the lines when you're doing this stage at all. The only thing you got to watch out for is that you let the underpainting dry long enough. A lot of times, that's like another secret of the old masters is they would not try to rush the painting too much. Usually when they do, like Joshua Reynolds trying to speed up all the steps to make his painting look like it was 200 years old, that they usually ran into problems later on, you know, but by just letting it dry, I could wipe all this off, all this color off that I'm scumbling on here. And it might not show up that much on the TV. We'll see. You can see it? Oh, okay. I could wipe all this off. It was just like wouldn't even have noticed that just barely noticed that I did anything to it. Okay, so now I'm going to get a little bit more of this blue here, and I'm going to put a little bit of a blue wash over these characters in the background just to darken them a little bit. And I think we could probably put some notes of brown in there too. But overall, I just want that shape of the other characters to kind of go off like that. Maybe I'll come in and say, oh, well, this horse, we're going to make the horse brown. We're going to make whatever this is over here. We're going to put some brown there and maybe some brown, other brown shapes. Kind of like that. And then kind of leave that. Now, I'm going to clean this brush. So I'm going to wipe it with my paper towel. I'm going to dip in my brush cleaner and kind of squeege it out. And then I want to maybe move into some of that green of the. I'm going to get a different color for the water, the green of the water. So I got some Terra Verte, and Terra Verte is a very weak, delicate. Maybe delicate's a better word. Weak implies that, you know, it's like. I mean, it is a really neat green. It's just delicate and easily overwhelmed by other surrounding colors. It's mild-mannered and would definitely be completely overwhelmed by the presence of like a Venetian red or something like that. But here I got some green and some blue sort of next to each other. And I'm instinctively working kind of from back to front again. As you can see, I've got the sky and some of the background blocked in, and now I'm going to start to get some of this green and maybe blue-green of the water. So maybe over here we get some blue and some blue-green. How's it going, guys? And again, do not worry about painting that green over George Washington or whatever, because you work on the background, you paint too far, and then you just wipe away the foreground if that's what needs to happen. Okay? So between the Terra Verte and the ultramarine blue, I am finding a very happy sort of a aqua color. And it is certainly more less is more even with the glazing, guys. You'd be surprised how much color a little bit does. So we're getting, as you can see, boy, that blue just really did a number on that. But let's get dark. Let's get green over here. This is all water. This is water right here. Okay, water. We've got some ice, you know, but maybe we'll just kind of wipe some of that ice out. They're crashing into the ice. Get over here, scumble, go all the way like that, and then wipe. How's it going? 18 minutes left? Oh my gosh, okay. Well, that sounds like perfect timing. I'm not going to rush now. So, let's, a little bit more blue. And then there's that boat. The boat is a very dark brown, okay? So I think that if I came over into my burnt sienna here, I don't even need to clean the Terra Verte out of that brush because it's just completely overwhelmed. Maybe even a little bit of the burnt umber and a healthy dose of medium. And then let's get that brown on the boat here. And let's keep going. Let's just go all the way over. I'm going to paint right in front of these things here. Right in front of the oars and everything. We're going to wipe out wipe that oar away. Wipe this out and here. And even that like that. Now, so if I've already got some brown in my brush here, then maybe I'll put some of that on this guy over here. I forget what color he was. And but I'm going to say he's brown. And clean the brush. If I recall, and we'll just do pure Terra Verte right here. But if I recall, this fella is green. He's definitely wearing a green shirt or whatever. And then I think he's got some like yellow trousers or something. So let's try this stilled grain. I don't even know what color that is. Or maybe we'll get some yellow, Indian yellow. You know? You can't go wrong with Indian yellow. No, you can. Sorry. A stilled grain. It's kind of a weird yellowish, kind of an interesting color. You can see it's not, as a yellow, it's not darkening the underpainting too much. But that's, I'm going to put that color there. If I recall, this fella here had sort of a leather colored jacket on. And there definitely was some red or somewhere around on Washington, you know. There was some red somewhere. Where was it? Was it here? Yeah, maybe. Whoa, that's pretty intense. Let's wipe that back a little bit. You know what, I'm going to save that degree of redness. Let's paint that in the stripes and the flag. Water it down a little bit. Maybe have it mix in with some of that burnt sienna. So we'll put some stripes there. And there's kind of like some stripes going this way as well. I'm going to get some different browns, different hues of brown. Like there's that guy's face, George Washington. You know, these are all pretty much kind of outdoorsy, Caucasian-looking guys. This guy looked African American for some reason. This guy. So we'll just put some kind of like some brown on each one of their faces and their hands. But don't think that this is any more complicated basically than tinting a photograph. That's what we're doing. Tinting a black and white image with transparent color. There's his arms. What color? Blue, definitely blue for George Washington here. And he has the yellow trousers, so we'll kind of do that same sort of leather yellow. Maybe it's like a raw sienna, kind of a raw sienna color. Let's try a different brown. Let's do sort of a warm reddish brown, a little bit of, and let's get that guy, let's get this guy up here at the front. Let's get him red. Again, we're going to call this George Washington incorrectly remembered. I think that same sort of brown violet color is going to be on this dude. And, you know, they got these hats that have that same sort of dark felt looking right here, and George Washington. By reaching kind of further down into these, further down into our values. Now I do remember that this fella, he's really dark and blue. Dark, let's even get a little bit more blue. Now this, my palette, you can see it's, you know, there's a lot of little scrubby areas of transparent color right on here. No white at all, man, I'm telling you. And technically, the only reason you're able to see the color is because of the lighter underpainting. Let's go with the bow. I don't know. I think we'll try another brown. You know, shades of brown, man. That is definitely something that you see in a lot of old masters. But frankly, you know, everything that you see in an old master painting, kind of it still exists. It's still happening. It's a lot of the same light and things like that. Oh, let's get these boots. Well, first we'll get this soldier in the background here. This guy, he's got kind of like a dark. And then George Washington has really dark boots. "10 minutes. Get his hair. This guy here, dark again. He's got a brown hat. Fun. Well, let's put a little scrubby wubby dubby color there. So maybe a little bit of brown here. Maybe some color on the ore. This fella, maybe this gets a little bit. Who knows? Frankly, at this stage, you can kind of just have some fun putting any colors on here. There's a coherence to the underpainting that comes through from the lights and darks that is just frankly kind of hard to destroy with the transparent color, because you're never going opaque, so you're not really changing too much. A little bit of brown on him. So we kind of got some colorization going on. A few more little shapes here. Maybe we're just going to get a dark and then gradate to sort of more of a brown. The edge of that boat, I want to make sure maybe that has just a little bit of a warm. Don't want to keep that too bare right there. So now when it comes to our own copy of the Washington crossing the Delaware, this might have been something even as like done as a preparatory sketch. You know, a lot of these paintings that you see, they would do a tiny version of it. Like there's a lot of really beautiful, teeny tiny Sir Peter Paul Rubens paintings. And he would do a teeny copy, and then he would give it to his studio, pretty much give it to Van Dyck and be like, okay, I want it to look exactly like this. And then that little study was pretty much all they needed to at least get the painting to the point where it was all blocked in. And then Rubens could walk in from, you know, his ambassadorships or what have you, and have something all laid down and begin to figure out what's right and wrong with it. Which would be kind of fun, man. Can you imagine? So, with just a few more minutes left, as you can see, you know, it's definitely got a color look that's beginning to happen, especially if we compare it to, you know, I don't want to really tip it up because the reason I painted it all down was I don't want it to run. But we have a few more minutes, and I have another little painting right here where you can see like, oh yeah, something as simple as this study right here. This little head painting right there. Oh, look at that. I'm going to maybe just give it some brown. Let's give him some skin tone. Let's put some brown on his face. Yeah. And then maybe in some parts we take that brown and we make it a little bit red, like right around where his nose is and his ears are. Say what? And yeah, we'll give him some color, you know. We're colorizing this guy. Now this painting was painted very low key. So where I showed the slides of that other one, and it was nothing lighter, I mean there was nothing darker than middle gray in that other painting. In this painting, there's nothing lighter than middle gray. So even what appears to be his white shirt is actually middle gray, and everything is dark. So this is a very low-key painting as opposed to high-key. Now when it comes to underpainting, it makes more sense if you're going to glaze to make your underpainting too light, because glazing always does the same thing. In some way, shape, or form, it makes the surface darker. Okay, always. Even if it's just a tiny bit, because it's a yellow glaze, it darkens the painting. So it sort of behooves one to do the underpainting too light, because you know then that you're going to darken it. Let's go all just yellow. Let's go super yellow here. Oh, Rembrandt. Man, that's like Rembrandt white right there. That yellow. Okay, and then we're gonna go brown, man. We're gonna brown sauce this guy. We're gonna give him a brown jacket and a brown background. Ugh. And, I gotcha. We got a lot of brown, guys. And yellow. Ugh, so 70s. But it really fits this guy, I think. So now that we went that brown and yellow, let's go even redder and oranger and on the skin tone. You know, that's one thing about color, guys, is the more color, if you want more color, the more color that you paint, the more color you allow yourself to get away with. It's pretty fun. So if I start going really, just like key this towards the brown sauce, then it's like we're painting with A1 right now, A1 sauce. But it's going to work. It's going to work. And then I'm going to go brown gray on the background, and then we're just going to be like, this is just Rembrandt City with brown on brown, and then dark brown. Yum. So let glazing not be some fancy, complicated thing that you have to, like, I don't know, you have to like say the word with your pinky out or something. It really is just colorizing. And in that regard, it's not a big mystery. The only thing you got to make sure is that, you know, that you're using transparent colors and that you thin the paint with enough medium so that it'll dry nicely and you'll get a nice layer that adheres to the surface. And pretty much that's it. And secondly, like a lot of things, you can't go wrong, because if I don't like anything that I did to this painting, to this portrait right here, that I just like made all brown, I could just wipe that right off. And it's like no harm, no foul. Experiment, have fun. In fact, let's wipe this all off. Let's just go, no, I don't like anything that I just did right now. And this, we're just gonna, look at that. Look at that. We're getting right back to where we were. So you don't have to be afraid, because no matter what you do, you can always just wipe it away, you know, clear it out. Now, maybe I like the way it just, see now, technically, you know, I guess it is a little bit browner, unless I really clean it with my paper towel. But even now, it's more interesting just by wiping one little weird wash on it. 1 minute. 1 minute? Okay, let's do it again. We're going to paint it back now. Da 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 da. We changed it, and then we changed it back, and then we're going to change it again. whatever. Guys, demystifying painting. It's picture making. You're going to colorize your underpainting. Gosh, what else could we do? We could colorize this one right here. Look at that. Maybe we're going to put some green trees and some brown logs and some pink clouds and some orange flowers on the bank. You never know, because with transparent paint, I can just do wherever, whatever, whoever, wowever, and you can really get bright and crazy with it.